Hey there, yeah, I'm Brad Lewis. I produce Storks, and that's why I'm at View to Talk.
So let's talk a little about what it was about computer animation that first attracted you, leaving live action and stepping into this world.
The interesting thing about animation for me is that increasingly it has become what I consider to be the kind of the highest form of entertainment for everybody, from kids all the way up to adults. That, you know, we strive to put out animation and animated movies that are like great old clever television from the 60s and 70s and early 80s. And so I think it's to me it's one of the most difficult art forms to tell a really great story that can mean things for people from 3 years old to 80 years old. But I love that idea of that kind of clever comedy. General entertainment is the thing that I feel like we concentrate on more as an industry than other aspects of movie making.
What do you feel computer-generated animation has opened up for bringing crazy ideas like rats, mixing rats with French food in Paris, and bringing that into life on the big screen?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It does allow for the crazy idea, the impossible idea. Certainly, you know, animation lends itself to the impossible idea. And so impossible creatures or animals or something that could do things they couldn't normally do, obviously. But also I think that to tell a 3-act, 85, 95-minute story with something that has sort of an impossible setup is a great ride for an audience to feel like they're going to go on. Nobody came to Ratatouille feeling like, oh, I can't wait to see a rat in a kitchen, right? It was the opposite, really, which is like, I don't know if I want to see that. There's going to be a rat in the kitchen. So to try to take an expectation when you have an impossible setup, or something like Storks, where we're going to deliver, Storks deliver babies, you sort of know that's going to come around. Well, how do they make babies, and how would they do that? To set up the audience in such a way that it's going to be something impossible, I think is a stimulating experience for an audience. And it's a stimulating experience as a filmmaker to try to solve those story ideas.
And speaking of solving, how have you seen the evolution on the video game side? For instance, Cars has had video games as well as films like the one you worked on, influence what you guys can do on the CG side with storytelling?
The thing about video games is they're becoming incredibly sophisticated as far as their graphics and their characters and their animation and so forth, which is it's really exciting. I mean, I've been in the industry long enough to see it go from colored cubes. So every time I see a new generation of it, I get I'm sort of blown away at the quality. That being said, I still think that capturing, because there's so much about gameplay as it being a part of games, and that means I think something that's part of the addiction of them, you know. I still feel like there's a length to go as far as character and story development, both in video games and in social applications. And to me it feels like the logical next extension of, in a way, for us to make an animated movie that somebody goes and sees once, or maybe sees again on DVD or something online, those characters, we work so hard on the story, we work so hard on people understanding their motivations and their personalities. It feels like they should go on and live in new ways. That's not necessarily a sequel and confined to a cinema experience, even though it's an incredible cinema experience to start with. I'd love to see that be able to apply itself into nonlinear storytelling in social media platforms as well as game platforms. And I think that could be a even more addictive style of gaming, whether it's VR or just being able to experience characters in different ways, in new ways.
And I was just going to ask you about VR. What do you feel that is opening up as a new platform to either extend franchises or explore storytelling firsthand?
You know, what has always happened in animation and computer animation and gaming and now in VR is, or 3D for that matter, the technology comes first and the storytelling has to catch up. For me, it feels like VR is at the place where there are people that now are starting to try to say, hey, this is unbelievably powerful. This is an immersive experience. We can get high-end graphic experiences. We can do, environments and sets and so forth that you really feel like you connect with. So, and I know that there's been some early VR animation that's beginning to try to take advantage of those. So I think it's on the cusp of where some very talented filmmaker or filmmaking team will dive in and make an immersive feature-length experience that I think will be mind-blowing.
Even from a short standpoint, which a lot of exploration right now is more shorts, what role do you see them playing for movies moving forward, even if it's just marketing or getting a closer look at some of these characters you guys spend so much time creating over multiple years for the big screen?
Yeah, typically shorts are the way that we start to understand how the new technology is going to be able to work and what we might be able to do in it. I feel like some of the VR, and I haven't seen everything that's out there, is certainly visceral and emotive, and I believe that it's opening the door to show us what we're going to, the possibilities of what we can do once we can really get in there. The other thing that's interesting to me is I think both in social and in VR, there's an active choice the viewer makes. In VR, you have an ability to say, I'm not confined to just this proscenium. I can look over here, oh, what's that? And I can divert attention. Now, it creates two things. One is it's a different art form, because in filmmaking, we're working with a proscenium. We're telling you through lighting, focus, camera, what to look at, and what that means to the story. So there's less story control, I think, once you get an audience member or a viewer that can suddenly now make choices within this environment. So on the idea of great proscenium cinematography, theater, proscenium art, some of those principles can apply, but it throws them out the door. So I think it's going to be sort of say, how do we control the aesthetic experience, if assuming for a moment that we can tell stories that have multiple strands, multiple characters, and people can go in a variety of different directions. Can it still be aesthetically beautiful? Can we control those elements as well?
What role do you see computer-generated, computer animation playing in Hollywood today, especially having been involved in this medium for a while, the evolution of where it is today?
Well, I think I can speak more of what I hope happens. I think still there's a bit of a point of view that animation is more of a genre than it is a medium, and that it's already defined itself, and it's really just sort of a one type of family fare that's lightly comedic that will entertain people, and that's it. I think that the technology in computer animation and the artists and the directors and producers that are involved are capable of far greater things than just that. And so I hopefully a movie, even like a Sausage Party that comes out, an R-rated movie, can show that it's not a genre, it is a medium, and that we can make some vastly different choices within that. I think even the look, we haven't even begun to explore the variety that you can do in a look in a movie as well. So I think it's much more versatile, and I hope that it will be perceived as that, and that we can make still mainstream movies that can make enough money to justify, and the budgets can come down so those two can converge, and there can be greater variety in animation.
How have you seen the ability to create quality computer animation, budget-wise, come down and allow more creativity with what we're seeing out there on the big screen?
You know, partially the tools and the software that animators use is getting faster, and it's easier to use. So people that come out of studying this in university or other art schools are coming out much more highly trained. And that technology is not as expensive as it used to be. So in general, production companies are able to get prices down. Although it still has to trend farther down to truly become viable, but it's trending down. The second thing is just the artistry is amazing. There's people that worked on Storks that are fresh out of school that did some of the best animation I've seen, that took some great veteran animators, a decade to get that level of skill, partly because of the tools and partly because of maybe just not having that training early on in school. So I think the skills the artists are coming up. I think the tools are getting easier to use. I think they're more universally available. And I think across the globe, there's actually small companies that are creating, production companies that are doing some really good work. At some point in the next 10 or 20 years, those are going to converge at much lower budgets and at the same level of artistry or a very high level of artistry.
It wasn't that long ago where it was pretty much just Disney and PDI were like the only ones doing computer animation, and now everyone seems to be involved in it. How is that influencing and pushing things forward with what's being done in the medium?
Well, I think people look at the bright and shiny stuff, like, oh, here's a big animated movie. It made a lot of money, and everybody fell in love with those characters. So it looks simple, so we can do it too. And I think studios see the family movie space as an important movie space they want to be in financially. So it certainly. It provides inspiration, I think, for both studios and companies and artists to want to get involved in it. But the other side of that is, I think, the really good movies that have been done by the Pixar, Disney's, PDI, DreamWorks, now Warner Brothers and others, Illumination. They're really hard. They're really, really hard, and the process is so methodical that it's a very difficult process. So people it looks like a bright and shiny, easy object, and it's just not at the end of the day. So there's a little bit of fool's gold there for people, and I think it comes back to finding people that are really understand the medium and are filmmakers that are sort of talented, entertaining artists.